Greetings again, friends. For today's podcast, let's head to West Africa, specifically Nigeria, because the world has been watching this gigantic, huge, historic big deal of a presidential election which just wrapped up in Nigeria, and it has resulted in the dethroning of the sitting president and a new president coming in. And it's a really big deal for Nigeria. It's actually just as a big deal for West Africa as a whole, and indeed it has impacts for the entire world. How's that for a setup? All right, what shall we call this podcast about the Nigerian elections? How about Buhari spells bad luck for good luck? I got my radio voice on today. All right, Buhari, good luck, bad luck? What's this all about? Well, that's the names of the outgoing and incoming new president. One, Muhammadu Buhari, is the guy who just won the Nigerian presidential election, beating Goodluck Jonathan. Yes, that's his name. Goodluck Jonathan. Well, he had bad luck at the polls this week, but his name is still Goodluck. Now, before we get to why Jonathan lost and why Buhari won and what repercussions this is going to have for the country and the region and the world, let's just talk about why it's a really cool, good thing and why the whole world has kind of applauded this Nigerian elections, and Nigerians themselves are very happy with the elections. Yes, about half of them, their candidate lost, but really everyone in Nigeria is kind of celebrating, saying, wow, a really historic event just happened. A really big deal just went down that, again, has repercussions beyond Nigerian borders. And what I'm talking about here is they had a presidential election and a democratic election. And the sitting incumbent president lost, and a new guy's coming in, and it's happened peacefully. Now, yes, this group named Boko Haram blew up a bunch of people and killed a bunch of people trying to vote at the polls, but that had nothing to do. That wasn't sanctioned violence by the state. This is a state that has tons of political corruption, so a lot of us from the outside, and probably a lot of Nigerians too, were expecting this vote to be flawed, to be rigged, that the sitting president wouldn't relinquish power even if he lost. That all of these what ifs didn't happen, and so you had an election which was, by most standards, has been called pretty free and fair. It looked like it went down okay. And more importantly, it dethroned a sitting president, the sitting president that had all the power and all the levers of power at his disposal to not lose this election if he wanted to cheat at it. But also, he very quickly admitted defeat. That was spectacular cool. All of us were like, whoa! He went without a fight. Mostly because the margin of the voting was so overwhelming. For Goodluck Jonathan to have disputed it would have been to just say, I'm not recognizing the democratic process. I think somewhere on the order of 2 million, 2.5 million votes was the spread, and it's like, well, you can't fake that one, you can't cheat that one. Buhari won by a lot. So Goodluck Jonathan, yesterday said, I admit defeat. Good luck to the incoming guy. And that's a really big deal because that doesn't happen often in Africa. Even the places that supposedly are democratic, that supposedly have elections, cheating is common and consolidating power is common, and holding on to the presidential seat well past your invitation date is very common in Africa. Some of the longest serving rulers on planet Earth are in African countries. One need look no further than Zimbabwe, a place you've probably heard about in the news, where Robert Mugabe, who got elected 33 or 34 years ago, keeps getting elected, and that's a very common tale across Africa. So looking at Nigeria, we're like, whoa, it's an actual democratic transition, and it's happening. And not only, note to self on this one, not only was it that one guy lost the election and a new guy, an outsider, kind of came in and is taking over and everybody's cool with it, but also it was a changing of the guards in terms of the political parties themselves. Muhammadu Buhari, the incoming president of Nigeria, is from the other political party. Nigeria has a lot of political parties, but there's kind of 2 or 3 main big ones. And so he was from the opposition party. So they weren't even on the inside levers of power. It wasn't like this is an internal thing where one political party had a president and somebody challenged them from within the party. No, this is an outside political party that just took over. And this marks the end of over a decade or more, maybe 20 years, of this one single political party that's held power. So to sum this up, Buhari is from the All Progressives Congress Party, APC. Not that I necessarily want you to memorize Nigerian political parties, but they were an opposition party that's never held the presidency, to my knowledge, ever. The sitting president, Goodluck Jonathan, was from the People's Democratic Party, the party that's been in power for like 20 years, pretty much in the modern era. Many of us, inside and outside Nigeria, would say, yeah, well, Nigeria is kind of a democracy, but it's a one-party state because only one political party's ever held power. Much the same in Egypt, much the same in Zimbabwe, much the same in lots of African countries. So this is why it's a historic big deal that people are getting excited about it, because it's like, it's now a true democracy. You've had not just a peaceful transition between leaders, but between different political parties. Get it? All right. Now, the other reason that this is a really huge deal is because I simply can't believe that it happened. Why would I be so stunned that this would happen so peacefully and legitimately in Nigeria? Because Nigeria is a wildly corrupt state. Economically and politically, it ranks in the top 10 most corrupt places on planet Earth on a regular basis. I'm not dissing my Nigerian friends. They all know it's true, too. Transparency International, an international body which ranks countries and governments by levels of corruption, they're the ones that have ranked Nigeria up there for a very long time. Now, on top of that, on top of the corruption, which is endemic and was a major theme for the election, you also have to look at holding a democratic election, people going to the polls, in Africa's most populous country, and how unwieldy that is in and of itself. Nigeria is the giant of Africa. The giant! I mean, it's only like this big on this map right here. Africa's a pretty damn big place. But Nigeria is not the biggest country by size in Africa, but it's the biggest country by economy now. It just superseded South Africa like last year to become Africa's single largest economy, worth I don't know, let's call it over 500 billion GDP. It's perhaps the 21st or 22nd or 23rd largest economy on planet Earth, depending on what list you look at. So it's a big deal. And that's one of the reasons why Nigeria is the giant. The other reason it's a giant is it has the biggest population in Africa. 175 million peeps hanging out in Nigeria right now. It's the giant for population in Africa. It's the 7th largest population on planet Earth. I believe I've also seen statistics, although I don't know exactly how they measure these things, that Nigeria has the biggest youth population on planet Earth. I mean, and that seems bizarre, like more than India, more than China, definitely more than China, but more than India. I don't know how they measure it, but biggest youthful population. So on top of a whole lot of people in a pretty corrupt big state, okay, there's also like 500 different ethnic groups. And lots going on above the scene and below the scene. And there's been conflict, and this is a state that's had many military coups in modern history since it became independent, lots of instability, lots of corruption, and then layer that, the cherry on that corruption cake, is this insane clown posse we refer to as Boko Haram up in northern Nigeria, which is trying to destabilize and overthrow the whole state to begin with. Think about all of that crap I just said in the last 5 minutes, and they had a well-run, peaceful, democratic transition. It's astounding. It's a really big deal. This is the type of kind of watershed event where people in Nigeria are very happy. Again, even if the guy they voted for lost, everybody's kind of celebrating, saying, hey, we're actually a real democracy now. We actually did it. And that means that we, the people, have power like you're supposed to have in a democracy. that we not only threw out the incumbent president, but his political party. That's a big deal. It's a big deal, and people now are, maybe I'm overplaying this a bit. I'm not Nigerian, but I think the sense on the street, the spirit on the street is like, wow, okay, we're legit democracy, and we the people have power to change our system. That's a sentinel event in a country's life, and that's where Nigeria is. Now, let's get to these dudes and dudettes here and try to talk about now, why is this a big deal for Nigeria and the world in real terms. Well, let's talk about the dude first. So, Muhammadu Buhari, great name, President-elect Buhari, he's a very different dude than Goodluck Jonathan. And I won't go through a whole bunch of details of Goodluck Jonathan because he's on his way out. But he's probably a mid-50s guy, maybe in his 60s, I don't know. And from the main political party, as I suggested, that's been in power for a long time, and he rose up through the ranks of those folks. He's been in office for about 5 years, and it's been about 5 years where Nigeria has not done so well. We'll come back to that in a second. What about the new guy, Muhammadu Buhari? He, opposition candidate from the other political party, 72-year-old retired general. That's interesting. Here's what's more interesting. This isn't his first trip to the top slots of power in Nigeria. Back in 1983 to 85, he also led the country because he was present during a military coup in which he took power. So a lot of his detractors, people who, during the political campaign, they were attacking him nonstop about this because he was not really a fan of democracy. He was a military guy who actually took over power in a military coup and then kind of ran the country with an iron fist and instituted all sorts of draconian laws, quite frankly, but in a nice way. And this is going to sound funny for me to say because, I'm a anti the man, anti the power, anti big government. But when this guy came to power in '83 via military coup, he passed a bunch of draconian laws not to consolidate power to himself or gain a bunch of wealth. He was trying to do it for the good of society. Now, I'm not saying he was right or good in doing it, but he had good intentions in his mind. So draconian laws like I'm talking about, if government workers were late to work, they had to do something called frog jumps publicly, which I guess is like a push-up or a burpee or something. There was laws passed that say you had to queue up in a single file line at a bus stop, or there would be military police walking around beating people over the head with batons going, shape up, get in line. If you spit on the sidewalk, you're going to jail. That type of let's clean up our country and clean up our act by force type of laws. He also, if memory serves, in some of the reading I've done on this guy, he also was very kind of pro-Nigeria in terms of, I'm going to fix our economy by turning more inward. And we're not going to follow the rules of the IMF or the West who's lent us all this money. We're going to do it on our terms. Thanks for the help. We'll pay you back eventually, but we're going to do something called import substitution. We're going to ban luxury goods. We're not going to let a bunch of imports float in here unless we need them. We're going to try to be more self-reliant. We're going to try to ban stuff coming in to encourage people to start their own businesses in Nigeria. Now, he was only in office for like a year and a half before he got deposed by a coup. But if you look at what he was doing at the time, back 30 years ago, he had good intentions. I don't know how else to put it. Would I want to go back in time and live under his rule? No. But he wasn't gaining power and then becoming corrupt in order to gain more power and or money and or screw the country over. He was trying to fix things. Okay? Now, he wasn't in power long enough to see if those policies worked, but his past, even though it's a little anti-democratic or a lot anti-democratic and perhaps a little bizarre, has fed into his future or his current status, which is even back then when he did those things, it's been interpreted as he was pro-Nigeria guy trying to clean up Nigeria. Because some of the other draconian laws that he passed were about corruption. And he rooted out all sorts of corruption in the government. But this, again, back in the 83, 84, 85. He was firing everybody. They were sending people to jail. If they could prove that you were on the take, bam, you're in jail. And that's the exact type of thing that everybody in Nigeria right now wants to see happen. Are you starting to see why this guy won the election? So he is seen as a super pro Nigeria, anti-corruption type of guy. He has a reputation as an incorruptible politician, incorruptible, who actually lives modestly. And that's kind of rare in Nigeria. Guess what? It's kind of rare in the United States. A politician that lives modestly. So you start to put these things together, and he's kind of a good guy. He's a good-looking candidate because he's clean. He's incorruptible. He wants to clean up corruption. Even though he has an anti-democratic past, in that past, he was putting people in jail for corruption. And people are like, well, that's kind of cool. Now let's get to some other interesting things. He has pledged to crush Boko Haram. Yeah, now we're getting real. Now we're getting to impacts beyond Nigeria, and that are going to affect the region and the world. So he's promised to crush the Boko Haram insurgency up in northern Nigeria, which has spread out to other states. And many peeps, including this one, believe that he can actually pull it off where Goodluck could not. I'm not alone in this belief that this is the dude that can destroy Boko Haram. Why do lots of us think that way? He is a Muslim. He's Muslim. He's Islamic. Boko Haram, extreme wacko Islamic. This guy is Islamic. That already starts to speak to you, I think, that, okay, this is a guy who sees this threat, and even though they're all of the same religion, he sees them for what they are, which is not really of the Islamic religion. And he has already said, I'm standing up against this. Yes, I'm Islamic, and yeah, they're Islamic, but we're going to wipe these people out. And that's promising. Goodluck Jonathan's from the South, not Islamic. Again, that's not perhaps a huge big deal, but maybe you don't know this about Nigeria and lots of different states in West Africa, but there's a north-south divide. And the north-south divide is that the northern parts of many of these states, the northern parts are mostly Islamic, the southern parts are mostly Christian. So there's a cultural divide within Nigeria, and it's also based on land use and economics. The north is mostly ranching and farming, and maybe some nomadic lifestyle stuck in there as well. The south is where all the industry is, and all the businesses, where all the money is, and where all the oil is in Nigeria. So Nigeria is kind of one of these split states for a whole variety of reasons that the north and the south are very different. And it plays out in a lot of friction in politics and even in military stuff within Nigeria. And this guy is from the north. Okay, all the action in Nigeria is in the south. This guy's from the north, and he's Islamic, and he's Muslim. He is from not just the north, he's from deep north. The state of Katsina State. I think the name of his hometown is Dara. And it's right on the border. I mean, it is, boom, it is right there on the border with Niger. It's about as far north as you can get, still being in Nigeria. And he's a Hausa. What? H-A-U-S-A. Hausa. It's an ethnic group. Maybe you can consider it a tribe. That's maybe a bit too specific. But being from where he's from, he's Islamic, but he's also Hausa, which is this large ethnic group, perhaps the largest single ethnic group in West Africa. Certainly one of the largest single ethnic groups in Africa as a whole. Maybe 50 to 70 million folks who share the Hausa language, because it's a language, and if you have the same language, that probably means that you share a history and share some culture, and that's how you all share a language. And it's a big group of people that spans not just in northern Nigeria, but in neighboring Niger, Cameroon, Chad, Togo, Ghana, even some in the Ivory Coast. It's a lot of peeps that are racially diverse, but kind of culturally homogeneous, who all share a language and some history and culture, okay? And, to say it again, this group spans out in a wide area across 5 or 6 or 7 states. Why would that be important? Hold on, put that one on the back burner, we'll come back to it. So why did Jonathan lose? Okay, that's who Muhammadu Buhari is. President-elect will be in power, I think, in like less than a month. Why did Jonathan lose has a lot to do with the perceived changes that we're all expecting to see in Nigeria, which is during this whole campaign, which was marked by a delay. They actually put off the election by a few weeks because of Boko Haram insurgency and a big military maneuver that Goodluck Jonathan did a few weeks back to go attack Boko Haram. Many people saw that as a completely political ploy. They were like, why didn't this guy do this for the last 5 years? He's doing it just before an election. So there was a lot of that stuff going on. But let's just call a spade here. The two big issues for this big presidential election in Nigeria were corruption, which I've now referenced many times, and insecurity, mostly talking about Boko Haram. That's what everybody was talking about. That's what all the election was about. Who can clean up this place and who can make us more secure by stopping this crazy group called Boko Haram that wants to destroy our country. Both Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan vowed to tackle these issues. That's what politicians say in elections. So pretty much everybody's saying, here's what 80% of the Nigerian population want. They just want these two things: clean up corruption, get rid of Boko Haram. And so, of course, both candidates are saying, yes, we will clean. Yes, I'm going to go after Boko Haram, and yes, we're going to clean up corruption and get our economy back on track. But the reason Goodluck Jonathan lost is he's been in office for 5 years. And again, most people are saying, well, you've had 5 years, buddy, and all of this stuff has gotten worse since you took over. And that is kind of one of those things we call true facts. Boko Haram was non-existent pretty much 5 years ago when Goodluck Jonathan took over. I mean, they existed. I knew about them, and lots of others did, but they were nowhere near the fighting force that they are now. Because in the last 5 years, there's been something on the order of 13,000 Nigerians killed by Boko Haram. Maybe another 1.5 million displaced, people getting the hell out of Dodge where this group has been taken over. You might remember hearing in the news where this group kidnapped 276 schoolgirls, went up to the school and just took them. That became a big international embarrassment for Nigeria and got a bunch of attention, and Hollywood celebrities and all those types were drawing attention. Then there was a big Twitter campaign to find the girls. Is any of this ringing a bell? Surprise, surprise. Let me let you in on the end of the story if you don't know it. They never found the girls. And this group has been growing in power and in their insanity and their death wielding and burning down churches and killing people and blowing up stuff. And taking over territory. And their latest stunt, if you missed this in the news, was pledging allegiance to ISIS, another group of insane clown posse Islamic folks over in Iraq and Syria that have, said, hey, we're going to destroy everything in our path and form an Islamic caliphate. This Boko Haram group said, yeah, we're going to pledge allegiance to those guys. They're on point. They're on mission. Woo! So everyone in Nigeria was basically saying for years, hey, can somebody stop this? And good luck. Your good luck has run out because you've had plenty of time and all of this has gotten worse since you were in office, and that is true. Now, how much worse had corruption gotten? I don't know. As I already suggested, Nigeria is so wildly corrupt. They always make the top 10, if not the top 3, list of most corrupt places on the planet. So I don't know if corruption has gotten that much worse, but nobody would say that it's gotten any better since Goodluck took office. And so basically, the bottom line is, if you're running on 2 major themes for the campaign, and you have already had 5 years and failed at them, then the voters don't vote for you. And that's exactly what went down. And then you have Buhari's reputation on top of that as this incorruptible law and order guy who has openly vowed to go destroy Boko Haram. And there you go. You have a presidential winner. So Jonathan really couldn't escape the fact that those 2 issues have gotten worse for Nigeria. And we can now start looking at, okay, why is Buhari perhaps going to have a better time at this? And why is there so much hope that Buhari can do what Goodluck could not do? Well, we'll start with the corruption. Again, going back to his prior tenure as leader of Nigeria, where again, 30 years ago, he was saying, yes, I think this is a really big deal, and so I'm going to root out corruption. And he did actually a bunch of tangible things to root out corruption. Trust me, my friends, we'll make this one a flash quiz question. There are bureaucrats and business people in Nigeria who are quaking in their boots today, worried that this new incoming President Buhari is going to do the same shizzle he did back in the 80s, and they're quaking in their boots. There's probably people packing up their money right now that they've ill-gotten gains and corruption gains that they've gotten. They're probably moving money the hell out of the country as fast as they can under fear that there's going to be a repeat, and many Nigerians would support that. Yes, let's pass a bunch of laws to get rid of corruption. Every economist everywhere says, yeah, Nigeria is the biggest economy in the world, and they suck simply because of corruption. Their unemployment is high, things don't work very well, electricity is spotty in major cities. The whole system is just rotten because of corruption, and there's no need for it. Because they're oil rich, they have a bunch of resources, they have a youthful population, they have an educated population. This country should be making bank. They have the biggest economy in Africa. It should be 5 times bigger than this already. And it's not because of corruption. Buhari seems like the guy who has the track record to maybe whip that into shape. And to suggest it again, there's all sorts of people who have been corrupt for the last decade or 2 or 3 who are probably packing up and getting the hell out of Nigeria before this guy gets into office. All right. Why else do a lot of us have fairly high hopes that President-elect Buhari can also reel in Boko Haram, extremist Islamic insurgency in northern Nigeria? Well, I'll say that 5 times fast. And again, it's not just in Nigeria. This group has grown in power, so they're now in neighboring Niger, in Chad, probably pulling over areas in Togo and Benin. This is a scary group, and they've been unchecked thus far, and so they have been expanding out the territory that they control with their attacks and insanity. Why could Buhari be the dude who can reel it in? Well, as I suggested, you get a lot more credit and street cred and respect if you are actually kind of one of the gang, all right? So he can say, an outsider coming in and saying, hey, there's this Islamic insurgency, we're going to stop all these Islamic people. If you're not Islamic, then it's immediately seen and can be interpreted as, well, you're kind of an imperialist. You're from the outside. What the hell do you know? Who the hell are you to stop this Islamic insurgency? Maybe Islam's the way it's supposed to be. Because trust me, that's what all the ISIS folks say. They say, oh, look at all these outsiders and foreign devils in here. They don't know Islam. They're just in here killing Islamic people. And that gains some credibility on the street. Well, you can't gain that credibility in Nigeria. This guy is Islamic. And he's coming in saying, you guys are the crazy, and you're not Islamic, and none of us like you, and none of us respect you. And I'm Islamic, so don't even try the imperialistic crap on me, buddy. I'm homegrown, and I think you're nuts, and I'm going to stop you. On top of that, let me go back to the ethnic part. I'm throwing a little ethno-geography here. The reason I pointed out these Hausa is because the Hausa group is all in these same areas that I just outlined where Boko Haram is. Now, does that specifically mean something different that this guy can do, or that he could do better than Goodluck Jonathan? I don't know. But what I'm trying to suggest is all of the areas that Boko Haram operates in, including all of these surrounding states, is also Hausa territory. And this guy's Hausa as well. He is local. He's going to get the respect and credibility. And now let me add a third component. He's ex-military. He's a retired general. What's it going to take to stop Boko Haram? The military! And a local Islamic Hausa guy that knows the culture, knows the language, knows the military. Who would you pick to go stop Boko Haram in this part of the world? I can't think of anybody better. Buhari's the man. He's going to get it done. And to reinforce this ethno-geographic Hausa theme that I pulled in here, recently, and by recently I mean the last several weeks, surrounding countries have also stepped up to send in military operations. military peeps with guns to join a joint force to stop Boko Haram from spreading even further. So what neighboring countries have sent in folks to help out? Let's see, troops from Chad, troops from Niger, troops from Cameroon. Same places I keep pointing out that are kind of this house of territory that have this common lineage, common history, common language, common culture. And the African Union as a whole, the AU, the whole of Africa, in that great supranationalist organization, they've also in the last few weeks said, well, we're going to dedicate 10,000 African Union troops to this fight. So the reason, back to point, the reason that this Buhari guy looks so promising is ex-military, incorruptible, clean, ex-military, local, homegrown, knows how the military works, hopefully will gain the trust of the military that he is retired from. Now, the military can be as corrupted as anybody else, so there's probably people in the military who are also going to try to get the hell out of Nigeria before Buhari takes power. But if he can get back in there, and kind of assume control in a more touchy-feely, hands-on military capacity within Nigerian military, and now you have surrounding countries in a joint force, and now you have African Union troops that are going to be dedicated to this, watch out, man. This guy can take that ball and run it straight into the end zone, and he has vowed to. Straight into the end zone and taking the football and spiking it on Boko Haram's face, and they're going to be out of there. Sorry I've gotten so excited, but it's a really kind of interesting big deal for all of the reasons that I've now suggested, and I'll wrap up with that. New head of state is going to affect corruption and Boko Haram within Nigeria, which affects Boko Haram in the West African region, which affects world Islamic extremism, because I'm predicting that this dude is going to virtually eliminate them with the assistance of surrounding countries in the AU, eliminate Boko Haram, which is a major stab in the back for the whole ISIS movement worldwide. That's why it has global repercussions, this one presidential election in Africa's giant there in Nigeria. And on not such a militaristic note, it also is very important because it's such a big deal for Nigeria as a whole. Nigeria, no matter what happens, whether Buhari ends up doing anything or not, this is a new era for Nigeria. Nigeria will never be the same. This election has changed the political climate in the country, and perhaps for the first time ever in the modern history of Nigeria, people feel like that they have a voice in their government, and they just exercise that voice. And once you've done it once, you then believe you can do it again. And if this government doesn't step up and fix some of the problems, the Nigerian people now believe they can vote in somebody else who will. That's democracy in action. Isn't that awesome? Hope you learned a little bit of something about Nigeria, about the Hausa, about Boko Haram, and about how Goodluck kind of had some bad luck. And we're going to look forward to a new era under President Buhari and Africa's giant there in Nigeria. But for now, party on.